So what can we say about the future of education in just 5 minutes? Probably nothing with real certainty, but all of our lives are becoming more globalized all the time, and very likely in the future our students are going to be connected to that world more and more through different technology. When I was a kid, we learned really important things like how to use a slide rule, how to make that weird cursive Z. These aren't the things that our students are going to need in the future. We still want them to be successful individually and as part of a much larger group. We hear all the time, these kids are different today. They've grown up with, all the social media and computers, and that's true. The irony is that often school is the one place where this is restricted, sometimes even forbidden. Nobody's suggesting to any of the teachers in here that students should just sit around all day texting their friends on their phone. But if schools don't respond to this kind of new technology, they'll become less and less relevant for the student. I see my students carrying around heavy backpacks, and it reminds me of the medieval knight. That's what they have in common. They're both hauling around a lot of heavy equipment. The difference, I'd say, is for the medieval knight, it may have made some sense. So what's holding us up? The changes that need to happen first require us to change. We have to think about education. We have to look at our own models and how we believe education should work. Before we can change the student and the education, we have to start with ourselves. It may sound scary to change. We don't like that. Well, you don't have to, according to W. Edwards Deming. It's not necessary to change because it's not mandatory to survive. But it might be that critical. If we're not willing to change, the results could be catastrophic. What we have to change is the way we look at things. We create models of the world, we come to believe that they're reality, we respond to them, and we don't like changing them very easily. René Magritte painted a painting of a pipe, and he wrote beneath it, "This is not a pipe." And it is not, and this is not an elephant. These are representations of reality, not the reality itself. These are the models. We have a model of education. Learning starts at 8 in the morning and it ends at 3. Students sit in straight rows where each learns the facts that the teacher already knows and then repeats those facts back to them in order to get a grade. Facts are important and they're easy to measure on a standardized test, but are facts going to be enough for the future of our students? Facts need to exist in a context of understanding. So we could approach education with a different model. We could work off the natural curiosity of the student, and maybe instead of just opening the textbook, we can open up the entire world to them using new technology. When I was a kid, television was 3 channels in black and white. Today we have 400 channels, on a satellite. I see how technology has changed in so many of our institutions. Sadly, schools often look the same way as they did 50 years ago. New technology can offer us a lot of advantages. One is education in a lot of flavors. Individual type education, voice threads and virtual realities and all kinds of things that students can be doing that they really couldn't do in the past. Other advantages, instead of just talking to other students that are in the classroom, they can engage with the entire world. Also, for disadvantaged students, there's nothing like good technology to give them a much more level playing field. I'm not suggesting students spend all day in front of a computer. As a teacher, I would like to see the technology being used to free up time in the classroom for more social interaction, authentic type discussion, face-to-face learning. So we could look at a different model for our future. The fact that Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president is not as important as understanding what makes a president great. Learning can exist at any time. It can be presented in many different flavors, and you can open the world. We all just saw a revolution in Egypt, which is often called a Facebook revolution. Look at how our world is changing, politically, socially, and in every other way. I wish schools were at the lead of that change instead of often behind. Now, it might surprise you to know that many of our students today are not engaged in school. Many of them don't see that what the school is presenting is what they really want. I think part of the answer to that is to give them part of a bigger community to be a part of and engage them in a much bigger conversation. So in order to change education for their future and not our past, the hard thing is we have to change our models. We have to be willing to approach it differently. Thank you.